Cool. Stephanie, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
So, before we get into your world of getting businesses in and out, it's very interesting. I want to know first and foremost, surviving this pandemic, we're going into a new year, but we survived this pandemic and it still is sending all these reverberations into our world right now. How much of living through that time period is affecting your business and what you do right now?
I'm one of the people that actually benefited from the pandemic because a lot of people very quickly needed to sort of pivot themselves, right? And I was really worried. I thought people were going to, shut themselves down, but actually, it was one of my best years. So people people realized how viable it is for them to work for themselves. And, when they were forced into working from home and staying home, it opened up their eyes. And so I think we're even seeing the effect of that now, years later, that, people want more meaning in their life. They want rest and they want to have some ownership and autonomy over the work that they do and to see the impact of the work that they do. So I think all of that sort of came to a head during the pandemic. And yeah, I think it's been good for us, right? Like I think it as somebody who promotes and really gets on the soapbox about being independent and working for yourself, if that's your path, then you can do it. And we have all the tools to enable you to do that.
But I think during that time period, it exploded because people were at home. They got to this existential crossroad in their existence and said, do I want to work for somebody else? Do I want to have the freedom and latitude? Because that time period, no matter how bad it was, no matter how much the health woe was affecting all of us, there was still that notion of, do I want to be tethered to something that isn't me? Do I want to inherently have freedom or be tied to something that is just uncertain? Because during COVID, so many ships sank, you know? So,
Yeah, I mean, I had some clients who were in very unfortunate industries where they had businesses that were based on being in person and local, and they hurt, right? Like that was really difficult. And part of the reason that they were working with me was to find a very quick way to shift their focus and to be able to create a new business model that would allow them to continue to make money even if they weren't in person and local. But I think it was like a huge wake up call for a lot of people. And this is sort of the soapbox I've been on for 25 years,
yeah.
is that entrepreneurship, if it's right for you, is a huge game changer in families, in quality of life, in the meaning that you bring to work. Like I think one of the things, I can't even remember having a job. I haven't had a job in a very long time, but I remember one of the things that really that I really struggled with when I was working for someone else was that I had this detachment from the work that I was doing to, the impact and the outcomes that that work would have
Yeah.
for whoever we were doing that work for. And
Mhm.
then, that becomes hard to get up and go into work every day when you don't have that sort of connection, that meaning, right?
Yeah.
And that makes us happier people. It
Yeah.
really does. And when we work inside an organization, it's also not uncommon that the work that we do, like when an organization grows, sorry,
Sure.
when an organization grows, inherently they have to start prioritizing things differently.
Yeah.
And that's how we get farther and farther and farther away from services or products that really align with what a customer needs. And that's why we have people complaining all the time about the crappy service or the crappy product that they get from a large organization. It's not to say that large organizations are bad or, there's a definitely a role for them for sure, but staying close to the organic heart of who they're serving can't happen at scale.
Yeah.
So when you go out on your own, you can create products and services that are far more closely aligned with what your customer actually needs. And
Yeah.
that feels really, really good,
Yeah.
right? That's worth it to walk away from the security
Yeah.
in order to have that impact.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. And to do that, I'm
Mm.
going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids. It's career day, 10, 11-year-olds, third graders. And one of the kids in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I work with small business owners who have looked ahead in their business and in their life, and they have thought, where am I going? And I want to do something, I want to build something more with this.
Yeah.
And they are planning to exit their business 3, 5, 7 years down the road. I help them figure out how to build a more valuable business now with the intention of eventually selling that business or taking themselves out of it, which we call an operational exit. So it's finally putting that long-term plan and roadmap in place so that we can change what we focus on in the growth of our business. Now, if you're a grade 3 student, you're not going to understand any of that. Sorry.
Right, but they'll understand the first part of it. But yeah, as far as like all the nuts and bolts of it, how successful is this? It seems like something that businesses would do without thinking about getting out. But how successful is this model overall for growth and for them to realign what they want to do to be ready to get out?
Yeah, it's funny because you would think, right? And we talk about, having a long-term strategy, et cetera, et cetera. That's a different thing than putting a stake in the ground and saying, I want to sell this business. Like I want
Yeah,
to make this something I sell.
yeah,
And and even if you never intend to sell, even if you're just like, I'm happy in this business for the rest of my life, changing the focus from where do I get my next client? I'm just on this income wheel to what am I building inside my business that's actually valuable, that will be worth something,
yeah,
is a whole like mindset change. And it actually gives people relief because that urgency and that feeling of like, I don't have anything unless I'm chasing clients and unless I'm constantly chasing income. That's
yeah,
kind of a crummy feeling, and a lot of people don't like it. So when we talk about like, I bought a business 2 years ago and I bought the assets of the business, right? I didn't buy the actual entity itself. So there's all sorts of things you can make valuable inside your business. There's all sorts of things that you could sell as an asset, or you sell the entire, you know, organization at some point in time if you've built the business around that. So there's options. And I think that's the big thing is that these guys don't know that there's options. They're small business owners, they're solo entrepreneurs, they're, expert businesses. They've kind of just built this around their skill set. And they're like, well, so when I'm done, I'm just kind of done. And that breaks my heart because I
yeah,
see all these people who have all this like value inside their business and they don't realize it.
yeah.
And now they've just kind of like, you can sell a business for $500. Somebody will buy it, right? There's a marketplace for everything. So yes, you can't, we're not talking multi-million-dollar exits, but you can, right? You can. And if you start thinking that way, you make really different decisions inside your business.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become your dream life?
A veterinarian.
Okay. So, what happened? Did you ever
Well,
pursue it?
I am multi-passionate. Um, I always, and I know this sounds goofy, but I always had the sense that I'd just be doing something like for myself. I would always be building for myself. And yeah, when I was in third grade, I was reading all the James Herriot books and I wanted to work with animals because I loved animals. But the other thing, this is funny, the other thing that I would do all the time is I would make forms for people to sign and fill out. And funny enough, I own a software company, and the software tool that we built is all about forms-based processes. So it's a data management platform on the back end, but anywhere that an organization has forms-based processes, we've built a platform tool to be able to manage those. So here I am, 50 years old, and I have manifested what I used to do as a little kid.
That's awesome. Well, and you got the animal angle. I see your dog in the background. So,
Oh gosh.
no, I love it. I totally love it. That's the one thing about COVID that was so awesome is that they're like, there's the sounds of animals or things in the background or something's going on. It's like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We're all living. It's totally
Yeah, she's
fine.
got her little clip, 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 clip,
Yeah,
clippies.
right.
She has to be wherever I am. So,
I understand. And when you're talking, they follow the voice. What do I have? Three? Yeah, we have three dogs at home. So I get it. I totally get it. So I'm curious, take me back to your childhood. What were these foundational seeds that were planted into you that made you become an entrepreneur to get in and have this business acumen? How did all this evolve into who you are today?
it's funny. What I would say is that what gave me permission to think like that was that my dad had started up his own little business. But the funny thing is that my dad and my mom were both teachers at colleges. And so they were dyed in the wool, like embedded in unionized everything, right? But he had an idea and he built a little business around it to make some extra money. And I used to help him in his business and I would assemble, circuit boards and I would, put these little like, security systems together and all of that. And I think it was just sort of when you grow up with that, it just becomes normal.
Yeah.
So it never scared me or it wasn't even like a, and then coming out of university, I was embedded right inside of the research park at the university, and I was like elbows deep in the dot-com world
Yeah.
and software startups. And like I've just been in that world from the beginning. So it was just normal to me to be like in the startup world and to know the energy of startups. And one of my first, second real jobs was in a big internet technologies company during the dot-com boom, where my job was to incubate little companies.
Yeah.
So we were building little businesses from scratch
Yeah.
in this like hyper accelerated world that was maybe like a little bit not real.
Yeah.
But I was totally obsessed and interested in internet technologies when all that started first came out. And I went and did a degree in internet marketing. Like I was like the third class through in like 1998 when the university was just starting to like realize, I'd done my first degree in new media and communication, and then I found this program at the other university for internet marketing. I'm like, yes, let me have it, right? So back then, 1998, there's not that much going on yet, but it was still like the concepts were still the same. So I think just from the word go, because my dad was in technology and
Yeah.
I just used to learn all the things he would teach his students when I was little because I was bored, right? I was programming when I was little, like just the technology world is so like entrepreneur friendly.
Yeah.
So it's just it's always been second nature for me. It has never felt like something weird or something big to just go out on your own. And now I've started, several businesses and it just doesn't seem like a big deal anymore.
So I'm 52. I'm in that same generation, and I remember the late 90s. And I'm in technology by day. I'm an IT technician for a school district. So I've been in technology my whole life. And I had some friends that went to Silicon Valley, and they got involved with a startup called, I believe, Toy.com. And right before the tech bubble blew up, they got out. They came back to Kansas City, and they made unbelievable amounts of
Yeah.
money. And that was
Yeah.
when all of us were like, what? Wait, hold on. How did this
Yeah.
happen? They got paid in shares in the beginning, which people thought it was kind of the Jeff Bezos concept, where he was like, I'm not making any money, but I'm doing this share thing. And everybody was like, oh, you're crazy. They'd laugh at him on the Leno show. But little did they know there was this, it was the pre Bitcoin era. It was like, that's the way that you're going to make money and vault off to do whatever you really want to do with your life.
If I could tell you how many startups I've worked for that have been like, we'll give you options. That's
Yeah.
how you'll get paid. I'm like, yeah, okay. And
Yeah.
yes, for sure, every now and then that did absolutely turn out.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've been through an IPO and we did a reverse takeover of another, our little software startup that I was working for straight out of university. We did an RTO of a bigger company in Ontario, and you get dyed in the wool, right? You get used to these IPOs, and you get used to you know the sales, the selling and the buying and all of that sort of thing. So I think kind of in my career, I've been able to be hands-on and immersed in every part of business. I've
Yeah.
seen it all. I've seen the finance, I've seen the design, I've seen the creative process, I've seen the sales process, I've seen all sorts of different business models. And it's, as a consultant in the corporate world, you also get to see the higher end of things. You get to see our software company serves school districts. And so I know this, and we build registration processes for school districts. So I know the school district world very, very well,
Yeah. Yeah.
and from the technology perspective. So, like, that's the fun of it is you get to see everything and you get to do everything when you work in small business. I consult into very large organizations, and so I get to see kind of both sides, and it's super interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's never felt weird or strange or like a big deal
Sure.
to be a business owner for me.
So who's been a hero? Who's been that inspiration for you in your career?
My clients,
Yeah. Nice.
right? And I just had this conversation yesterday, but I'm not what you would call like a celebrity humper. Like I get so inspired by seeing my clients like work through their stuff and make these huge mindset shifts or make these, you know, get really brave and start chasing a big strategy. Like that's the stuff that really drives me forward is the day-to-day conversations and the the courage that all of these folks. The business that I bought 2 years ago, we serve people who are just breaking in, right? Virtual assistants, freelancers, consultant, like the ones who are just kind of putting their toe in the water and going, can I do this? And so there's, it's not a world that they've come from. It's not something that it's so new to them. There's such a belief gap. I'll say like so much inspiration comes from those guys because they have not grown up with the idea that they're going to be an entrepreneur. They haven't done that forever. They've been admins in a corporation for 35 years and now they're like the bravery that it takes to step out and actually say I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Plus I feel like I'm going to get judged or like working with all of that stuff and still moving forward, like that's inspirational.
Yeah. So when you look at the arc of your career as an
Mm.
entrepreneur, what was a client or a time period that made you grow the most? Maybe it was tough, but you've made it through and the results were what you wanted, but you there was a tremendous amount of growth. Did you have a period like that in your career?
Like every year,
All the time.
all the
Right.
time. I would say it's been sort of like a pretty continuous journey uh, of learning and development. But I would like I see sort of big blocks. I will say working in the .com, that was A, the most fun, and B, it was like a hyper education.
Yeah.
I came out of the .com world at age 27 or something like that with like a massive education in business.
Yeah.
And I have a master's degree in business in like management of technology in entrepreneurship. Like that's nothing compared to what you learn when you're like elbows deep. And by the time I was 27, I had all of that already and I had a master's degree and that was the education like that. And so I took all of that, but I think it took a really long time for me to get to the point where I was like, wow, I actually like know a lot. I've
Mhm.
seen a lot, I've done a lot, I know a lot. And when I went out on my own as a with my own business, consulting and coaching and building strategy for small businesses, it was like people just came to me because I know business,
Yeah.
right? Not because I know a certain slice of business, but I just could navigate all this stuff. But even then I didn't have a lot of focus. So I would say that this last couple of years has been about that intense focus and knowing myself really well,
Yeah.
which I think was a huge step forward because otherwise I would just sort of like attach to something external that seemed like a good idea. But then it all sort of came together, and I was like, oh, this is it. And that's made a huge difference in my ability to communicate and be articulate about the value that I want to bring to these folks. And everybody's listening now.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you look at the business landscape, there's a lot of success stories out there. If you can meet one of these people that have built a business, an entrepreneur that's done something the right way, not only do they deliver a product that's they're profitable, they take care of their people and employees. Is there somebody out there that's an example that you would like to hang out with and maybe would benefit you on your path?
Oh, yes, but I can't remember his name. I remember his business. It's like a organic gardening and food like cooking business, but I can't remember his name. It was Jeff
Yeah.
somebody, I think. And
Okay.
I just thought he had such like an amazing um, focus and approach because he stayed really consistent and he stayed really true to what he believed in and what he was building around that vision, right? Around those values. And I think that that's really admirable because it's very, very easy for folks to get swayed by what's this person like. There's a lot of business owners are not business people
Yeah.
by their own admission, right? They have a like a service or they have a skill and they kind of muddle through and build a business around it. But when they get to the point where they don't know what to do next, that's when there's a lot of imitation. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean like that sounds natural. I don't know what to do next, so I'm going to go look to someone who's done it. And but like I really admire the people who just kind of go, nope, this is like I'm pretty clear on what I'm building. And this guy, I don't think he had any sort of background in business. He was just followed his heart. And when you lead from, that intuition,
Sure.
you create really interesting businesses. And business, like there's a post yesterday I saw that, okay, maybe here's one person I would really like to meet is the CEO of Canva.
Oh yeah.
Canva, there's three women-owned businesses that are making billions of dollars, and they have figured out how to just keep their how to do business well
Yeah.
and consistently. And they're not doing layoffs, and they're not doing, they've been really smart, but they weren't business people. They came from their craft. And so those three, the CEO of Canva, and she's quite young, right? And those two other businesses, I would really love to go hang out with one of those ladies too.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You have to, in your business, being an entrepreneur, there's so much there's so much pressure, so to speak, of all of these things. You're a marionette, getting things moving all the time. What is your motivation every day to do this work, to do it at the top of your game, to evolve, and to also grow as a human being? What is that collective energy for you every day?
Mhm. I start every day asking myself how I'm going to be big today, right? How I'm going to have big energy today. But honestly, like the win for me is if I get a bunch of people moving forward and being able to build these things on their own. So it's all about how can I do that? But what I really kind of sort of came to the realization of just in December is that I was in the wrong rooms.
Yeah.
And when I finally figured that out, my energy just went like through the roof. And it made me realize how I need to show up differently because I've always been a little bit of the Robin Hood, right? Like the there for the little people and let's get them all going. But I actually really want to serve those guys who are, a bit further ahead as well, because they're sitting there looking around going, what do I do? Like,
Yeah.
where am I going? Like, what's the end result for me? And they don't have that answer. I sat in a room of, 52 wealthy people who have very successful businesses in December. And I asked them that question. I said, how are you building wealth inside your business? And they were all kind of like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a whole conversation to be had. And that really drives me to know that there's more and more people who can have that sort of satisfaction and wrap up that investment that they've made for so long. And there's a conclusion to that.
Yeah. 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 So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, you ran into the 18-year-old version of you, you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated over all these years. What advice would you impart on that young version of you?
Well, first of all, the hair is going to change,
Right.
definitely. But I would say like take a breath, right?
Mhm.
Um, in some ways, being like this ADHD version of myself that just was, pinballing around to everything and trying everything has really served me. But at the same time, it's also not. And I was being in the technology space, especially back then, I was very conflicted because I would follow my intuition and be the person that I was, and all of the men around me would tell me that I was not behaving like somebody should, or, they were used to this like, you know, be aggressive and be a fighter and a warrior. And I'd go in and I'd make friends. And I was always successful and I always closed the deals and I had clients who loved me. But, it just didn't compute for them because the man business school would tell you to be aggressive and to fight and to, have like be the winner. And I'd go in and I'd be like, how can we all win here? And like, I remember the my boss at one point in time said to me, "Oh, we're going to go into this meeting, but you can't talk in the meeting because you don't know how to talk to customers." And I'm like, "Pardon?"
Yeah.
And so I would say, you know what? Don't worry about that. Still be yourself
Yeah.
because you're going to be successful based on that in particular. when you finally get into the right environment.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
We're not saving lives.
Okay,
Because
that's
I would
great.
have the tendency to just, work I'd be there at 10 o'clock at night and, stressing about everything and blah, blah, blah. And, I remember the guys I was working for came in one night and I was at 10 o'clock and he's like, go home. He said, we're not saving lives. And it's the same thing. I mean, okay, fair enough. Some people are saving lives, but for the most part, you know, my business owners get super stressed out about something not going right or them not doing it right or them not getting all the results that they want. And I just sort of think like no one's going to die if you put out this program and nobody buys it, right? You just got good information and now we have more good information so that we can make adjustments and keep going, right?
Yeah.
So that perspective, I think, has really helped me. And it was like a one weird little thing that somebody said, but it made me realize like this isn't life or death. Like we're gonna navigate this pathway and things are gonna sometimes go as we planned and sometimes not. And that's all just good information.
So at the end of the day, everything that you've achieved in your career, what are you the proudest of?
In my career,
Yeah.
I was gonna say my kids because that feels really good, right? But
Right. Yeah. No, that too. I mean, I guess it's kind of holistic. Yeah.
yeah, I would say persevering on the this part of it, like on my own brand and my own, because it was very easy to just, fall underneath someone else's container and fall underneath someone else's brand. But sticking this out and really working on myself and who I am as a business owner has resulted in a lot of growth for me. And so I would say like staying committed and persevering and being proud of and energized by who I've become.
So if anyone out there wants to reach out, they want to hire you, they want to learn more, they have questions, any of the good business, where do they go?
Go to stephaniehayes.biz or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn.
Okay, excellent. Stephanie, thank you. I appreciate your time and story. Have a wonderful new year.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.